Welcome to episode 55. All Wings Report in. Battle of Yavin discussion? Statistics? The meta? What the hell? Welcome to Planning Phase Syndicate, episode 55. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. Tonight we have a very special episode planned for everybody. We actually get to look at the Battle of Yavin, kind of discuss what that means for the current meta, what it means for X-Wing, reminisce a little bit about what hopefully we'll get to see if AMG ever gets over COVID and decides they would like to come join our community and share what they want to do for the next these 6 months to a year. Would be nice. They obviously did not have their stream this week at all, so they are going to have to replan it, and we have no idea when that is. With that being said, though, they did release some Battle of Yavin stuff for one of the new scenario packs that they are going to present to us, I believe, in the coming October. And what we're going to do is actually look into seeing those, what those cards are, and do we think they're going to break the meta or not? We're also going to be covering Kyber Cup and GSP Flight Academy tournaments that have recently concluded this weekend. I have a excuse me, I have a bunch of statistics that I've broken down that I wanted to go through with everybody because I think it's very interesting to see where your lists show up based on the percentage of lists brought in your faction. So I think that'll be an interesting, a little bit longer discussion. I promise we are not going to go over all 42 top cut lists for Kyber Cup. That's not going to happen. I have selected the top 5-0 and the top 4-1 draws, and then we have a smattering of about another 10 lists in there that I felt were specialty lists that also made top cut. And there's somebody on this podcast who made top cut, but I don't know if I'll cover his list because it's kind of just a cheap, generic crap list. But we'll see. Maybe we'll cover it. Maybe we won't. We'll see. At least it's not Trajectory B-Wings anymore. With that being said, let me bring in my co-host for tonight. Please welcome to the show, Mr. JJ. His hat still sucks no matter which way he wears it. And Charles, the Mandalorian Dillman. How are you tonight, sir?
Good. I just want to ask a real quick question before we get to it. Is it our official stance that we are calling it Yavin now?
Did I say Yavin again?
Bro, you said Yavin every
All right.
single time. If that's our official stance, I'm down for calling it Yavin.
We're going to call it Yavin.
I am down for like United Front.
All I think of is like a planet full of cats playing with like a ball of yarn. Like,
see, I was thinking pirates because it's Yavin.
Yar.
Oh, I like that better. Yes. The rebel pirates coming to kill the Death Star for the second time.
So I was showing just real quick because this is my souvenir from Boston, Chris, and I thought you would enjoy it. I was showing these to JJ before we went on the air. Look at this.
Oh, that's cool. Those are like mini Magic.
This is a fully functional 60-card Magic the Gathering deck, just for purposes of comparison. This is a regular size deck of cards.
That's sweet.
I have two of them. I
one that's trying to shuffle that, like the tiny.
I have one that's a Johnny and one that's Nicobolus. I need JJ. You and I are going to get drunk one evening and go to a Friday Night Magic and sit down with these decks and see if anybody will actually play against us.
I know, right? It says
that's
right here
cool,
in the text.
Yeah, if you know
I've
what
got
all
a
the
magnifying
cards,
glass.
Did you know what all the cards do? As long as you know what the cards do, I mean, what are they? What can they say? You know.
Well,
Yeah,
I don't know that they're legal. I don't know what's on the ban list and what isn't, but there you go. That's
good Lord. I would have to get like magnifying glasses out to read that.
Oh my gosh!
Like,
heck
here,
yeah.
guys, hold on. Oh, that's what this card does.
They're like the tiny little upgrade cards from our Armada. That's how small those things look.
Yes.
Yeah, you're right. They're like old school X-Wing upgrade cards at 1.0.
Oh yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah. Those are
Well, fair enough. How was your guys' week so far? I guess technically it's the beginning of the week, but how was last week for y'all?
Well, in terms of health-wise, I don't know about you, Charles, but you sound like you're suffering through the same thing. The allergies here in Florida have been so bad. Yesterday, and this morning, I was pretty much in misery with my sinuses, like just trying to recover. But other than that, had a great time watching like a lot of like different matchups for the last week at Kyber here. There's a lot of great strong lists, a lot of great players, a lot of close games that I saw this week. And yeah, I'm just excited to get to a lot of these top cuts for both Kyber and then next week also the GSP event.
Yeah, mine is a mixture of allergies and actual sickness. But I feel your pain. Yesterday, I took Benadryl and Claritin and anything that I could get my hands on that was a decongestant, and none of it like touched it. It's been just terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully that's not the norm for every year, because that I hate allergy season. I have worse allergies in the spring than I do in the fall, but
see, the thing is, and this is where people like, oh, the Sunshine State, it's summer all the time. Yeah, you know what that means? It means there's no winter where things die. So it's just pollen all the time. But I will say this, when we went to Boston last week, there were cars that had been sitting still for more than a day that had a film of yellow on them from all of the pollen. It was it was terrible. Boston was amazing. Massachusetts was awesome, but the pollen count was ridiculous this year.
I can imagine. Yeah, and we have those white flowers in where I live in Michigan, and so it's like that white dander that floats through the air all the time.
Oh yeah, like the dogwood trees.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's horrible. We went geocaching today for my kids.
That's still a thing?
It is, yeah, I guess it is, and it's part of their hiking badge or whatever. And they couldn't meet with their group last week, so I took them and we went on like, I don't know, 3 or 4 mile walks today, and it was just like we're in the sanctuaries or whatever the hell they call these weird little parks that are contained and run by the government, and like, yeah, it's all over there because nobody's going in these places, so it's just blowing left and right. But did we lose Charles?
Nope, I'm still here.
Okay, you're just sitting very still is all. You are like a statue.
He's zen.
I remember when we first started streaming.
I'm so like sick and just awful. Like it's terrible.
Well, when we first started streaming and like my cam link would crash, right? And like everything would be on the screen and we'd be talking and we wouldn't even know it. And then all of a sudden be like, oh shit, the cam link crashed. We gotta like reset that in a second. That's what I felt like for a second. Like, oh, I gotta refresh Charles's app there. So anyway, well, that's good. I'm glad everybody had a good weekend. A reminder, if you live in Florida and you would like to join us for the first ever Planning Phase Syndicate tournament, we are hosting one July 9th in Orlando-ish area.
It's Orlando. No, it's Orlando proper.
It is technically okay. Cool. Yes. And you can go to Disney afterwards if you want. JJ said he's buying everybody a lightsaber who comes out. So I mean, sounds great to me.
Anybody? Let me rephrase that. I gotta correct you just real quick. JJ is willing to buy a lightsaber for anybody who can get an appointment on that day.
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
And also for anybody that's coming, this has been kind of a new thing, but while I was unpacking at my new house, I found an extra Gar Saxon Funko Pop. So if you show up with a Gar Saxon pilot on your list or a crew on your list and manage to win a game, it's yours. So I'm going to bring it to the tournament. It is a side kind of hustle thing. If you really want one, I've got an extra one. So,
yeah, and it's free. Look at that. All you got to do is beat Charles in a game.
I didn't say you had to beat me. I just said they had to get a victory.
Oh, even better then. Well, then that's guaranteed.
I'm at least giving them a chance. If they had to play me, there was no chance.
Oh. All right. So why don't we get into the Battle of Yavin to begin with? And I guess I'm just going to keep saying it because I got it on the stream, like on the overlay, correct? But I obviously don't know how to speak properly, so we're gonna go ahead and transition. And now what we're gonna do is talk about the Battle of Yavin, and essentially what they were told us is going to be a scenario pack with standard loadout cards, which I guess were a thing. I didn't know this was a thing like that FFG did, but I guess it's a whole thing. And sometimes those cards can be used in standard play.
I would say if I'm not mistaken, and JJ, you're the resident expert when it comes to tournament stuff, but up till now, the quick build cards have not been tournament play legal. They have been for you to play with your friends and to like pick up games and learning stuff. These quick build cards that are coming in the Battle of Yavin, I can't do it. I'm sorry. The Battle of Yavin. I can't. It felt so wrong. Like my body revolted. In the Battle of Yavin pack will be the first ones we have that are actually tournament legal. Yeah.
Yeah. Now there has been some promos that were released previously by FFG. I want to say that originally had some common upgrades that were added onto the cards. I know there's a blackout with trick shot that came out, and there's another another Delta 7 one that had it as well. That they gave out as promos for some of the tournament events that those were legal, but this is before the AMG takeover. So yeah.
So the funny thing, and I will get to it. I do actually have a screenshot. It does look like AMG 100% confirmed on Facebook that these will be legal for standard tournament play.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be very interested to see what their point costs are, because here's their transmission, is what they called it. Their release to us of what the Battle of Yavin is, and essentially they say it's going to be a scenario pack, and this scenario pack is going to be chock full of contents for both experienced players and new candidates. We'll see about that. But the scenario pack is going to be a new type of expansion that they want to plan to continue to release, which I'll be honest, I like this scenario. I don't know what it is specifically, but I do like this in The Return of the Jedi. I think this is probably one of my more favorite scenes from that movie. So I am very excited to see like thematic scenarios come. I'm not 100% sold if I think this should be a tournament thing, or if this should be kind of specialized like Epic. But essentially what they're going to do is you're going to get standard loadout ship pilots that you can take into battle with unique scenarios for players to reenact on the tabletop. And they give some examples. They say this engagement, you get a squad of 35 points and face off to determine the fate of the rebellion. That's crazy, right? 35 points.
Yeah, this is definitely bordering into like Epic style play, where you have like a very large fleet to like spread out and do like that particular scenario there. Now, in terms of this being like standard for, or like legal for tournament play, as long as you cannot add or remove any upgrades with this standard card or pilot loadout, then I think it should be okay, because they would be able to cost it appropriately to give it as an alternate way to field this particular pilot. Honestly, like for the one that we're going to look at first, Luke Skywalker, the way that is loaded out, what we're seeing, at least from what I've seen across the board, playing several games and stuff, pretty much the standard way of seeing Luke Skywalker in the T-65. You see him a lot with like trick shot, shatter shot as of right now with the current meta, and seeing him with an alternate loadout that doesn't have that particular combo, which is really strong, is nice to try to see a different side of, or different loadout for Luke Skywalker that is standard legal for tournaments.
Yeah. So they don't. So they basically say that one of your ships is going to get the attack run condition. It's going to make an approach and shoot proton torpedoes at the exhaust port, right? So very thematic. But so I'm a little confused because they didn't go into exactly how that's going to work. But they did essentially say that they are going to introduce the TIE Interceptor, which I guess has received controversy from them. To them, I guess people have been complaining about the box art having a TIE Interceptor on it, which I guess I didn't really pay attention to that piece of it. We all know that ship does not technically show up.
I would say I don't remember seeing that in the Battle of Yavin.
It's not. Yeah. It's not. Technically speaking, it's not. Like, it doesn't show up because I don't think they invented it yet. You know?
So in their in the Star Wars Celebration panel, when they originally like revealed this, part of the discussion piece on why they went with TIE interceptors was that they actually worked together with Lucasfilm to discuss the possibility of other different types of ships being there at the Battle of Yavin. And Lucasfilm did give them their blessing. That they did say that there were other fleets that were nearby that did have the prototype TIE interceptors at the time. So they could have been in the vicinity of the area. They didn't necessarily show up on film, but they were in the vicinity. And they do show up afterwards to help basically recover the survivors of the exploded Death Star, including a mention in Lost Stars where Gazanti shows up to recover Vader's X1 as well. That was damaged after the explosion. To recover it, and they do mention TIE interceptors there. So it's a really big reach for lore because everybody just remembers the Battle of Yavin according to what the films show. But there is other extended media that kind of goes into that as well. It's just it's something like if you haven't read it or you don't know it, you just miss it. And then on the other end, they also wanted to kind of balance this particular scenario as well because they felt that TIE fighters versus X-Wings were not going to have the same chance in terms of pushing damage through, I guess, for balance. So they felt that the interceptors were a better choice.
So can I ask a weird question, though?
Sure.
Just because, and I understand the logic to some extent in that, JJ. I don't disagree with that piece of it, except for the fact that they're changing pilot abilities. And Luke is an example. They are changing his ability on the standard loadout card. Couldn't we just give TIE fighters a ability to have like a free reroll and an extra red dice, and then have 4 dice at range 1 and 3 at range 2 to 3, and then give them the ability where they could have standard like cannons or something stupid like that? I mean, they could do that.
I think changing the ability of a ship versus changing potential stat lines or changing things like that have 2 very different effects on the game.
And the other part of it is that it becomes a word salad at that point too, right? And you're trying to minimize the amount of text you have on the card. So.
I guess it just seems like they could have stayed closer and more true, but
yeah, I agree.
It is what it is.
Like I think that they should have, in addition, added TIE fighters and TIE interceptors for that variance. Because obviously the Rebels have the Falcon, the T-65, and the Y-Wing. There's 3 different ships, whereas now on the Imperial side, all you have is the Interceptors and Vaders. That's it. So
yeah. Now, the other question too, right? If they're going to up it to 35 points, are they going to allow us to have a larger ship count?
So as I read this and I take a look at the back art of this particular box, all the pilots listed there, it looks like that you should be able to field every single pilot there in a 35-point list. So that's how I interpret it. So yeah.
All right. Well, let's look at some of the cards. Let's start with Luke. What changed for Luke?
So the first thing that we have is his ability. So he reads, after you're declared the defender during attack, you may recover 1 force. That's the same as before. The added on ability is basically hopeful. After another friendly ship at range 0 to 3 is destroyed, you may perform a focus or boost action on his card. So that's something that's added on to him that normally isn't on his ability. The other thing that we don't have on this ship is the S-foils. They no longer need to open or close those S-foils since they already have this ability baked in onto the pilot itself. And we see it in attack speed. After you fully execute a 3 or 4 speed maneuver, you may boost using the 1 straight template. Now, it is a more limiting boost since you can only go straight. So that means you can't do any of the banking boosts, which are usually really good at outmaneuvering or getting around people to arc dodge. So it's a little bit different, but at least they have that option there for that boost.
Yeah, and I think I think that's interesting, and I think they're auto including instinctive aim, which makes sense, and they are auto including proton, torpedoes. Again, makes sense. And then they're adding R2D2. So I get the R2D2 include. It makes a million times lore sense, but like R2D2's ability, I don't know. Like, hey Luke, you want to take a disarm token, and now you're going to be able to recover his shield. Great. You know, like,
Can
I
I
don't
ask
know.
a question on this? Because I'm trying to find it outside of our document. Is this official release or is this a spoil or?
This was
is
in
a spoil.
yeah.
So we don't know if this is true or not.
No.
Oh, this is true.
This came directly from
Oh,
AMG.
no, okay. When I said spoil, I mean like somebody said they got their hands on a pack. Because I'm on
No.
AMG's release page and I don't see Luke on there. That's the only reason I asked.
Yes, because it was a Facebook or Twitter picture. It's
okay.
We should also preface this that AMG originally scheduled to have the mini extravaganza this week with all their streams where they would have broken down and revealed a lot of these cards. However, because a big group of them did end up with COVID, they had to cancel and reschedule. But they did release these images for the Battle of Yavin pack. They're gonna postpone the stream for a different week, so that way they can like do an actual full gameplay of this of all these ships and stuff, and answer, I guess, community questions for this pack.
Yeah. Yep. And R2D2, yes, Psionic. It is 2 charges for R2D2 for that. So now it'll be interesting, I think, because they talk about the proton torpedoes being used to complete the attack run. And there's no ability for him to recharge those. So at least they're going to be encouraging Luke to only shoot them. You know, at the don't shoot me, Luke. Leave me out of this. Which again maybe makes sense why they put R2D2 on there, right? Like, hey, Luke doesn't need to shoot because you're using Luke to go do the job that Luke, I guess, was created by his father and mother to do, I guess. I don't know.
I guess for me, and maybe this is weird, but a comedian pointed this out on a special I was watching over the weekend, and I never really thought about it like this. When they're talking about shooting the proton torpedoes into the Death Star, into a hole that's 3 meters wide, it seems like it's not very big, but when you look at the fact that Chewbacca is 3 meters tall, that's a big ass hole, man. That's a large hole to try and shoot a missile into. I mean, I'm not saying one way or the other, but like maybe it's not as. And somebody else pointed out that like laser bolts firing out of a gun fired about the same speed as like a fastball in the Major League Baseball, and just about every player in Major League Baseball can swat a fastball out of the air. So maybe deflecting laser bolts with your lightsaber is not as impressive as people think it is.
That's true. That. I guess I never thought about that way, Charles. Damn you and your making me think about things I don't want to do. All right, the next pilot we get is Pops Corel. I'm kind of actually excited just to have this Y-wing in the like a new Y-wing, right? Like in Rebels, who do you always take?
Cavill.
Dutch.
Oh,
Cavill is who you take in Scum, but
Nora is also very good as well. But yeah, Cavill or Dutch.
Yeah, and the unique thing here is they don't have anything to reduce the barrel roll. So
that's okay. If you ever see a Y-wing player take a barrel roll, just smack them in the head and move on. That's not a thing they do. Anyway. I love the 2 dice reroll. That's nice.
Yeah, that's pretty good. So just looking at his ability here, it says while you perform a turret arc attack, you may reroll up to 2 attack dice, and he also comes with the hope upgrade as well. After another friendly ship at range 0 to 3 is destroyed, you may perform a focus or boost action. Comes equipped with ion cannon turrets, advanced proton torpedoes, and R4 astromech to make all those 1s and 2s blue there. He is definitely a really interesting pilot here. In terms of cost, would you put him at the same cost as Dutch or the same cost as Nora?
I have an issue here, because non-fighting or non-pre-constructed battle situation cards. Hope is a force power, is it not?
No, it's not.
No.
Mm-mm.
Oh, is that
it
a
was always a
talent?
talent. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
It
Then
came out.
I withdraw my statement.
Yeah. It basically came out at the same time as discipline, which is like, you get an action after somebody dies. So that's the same thing. So
I got it.
Han Solo is the next one. And
I'll take this one because I'm building it right now and it's such a pain in the ass.
I mean, look at the picture. It kind of looks like your Lego construction. It's
Yeah, it
very
does.
flat looking.
Yeah, because right now it's not. Anyway, I'm 3 bags in 2 weeks. Like, it's ridiculous. After performing an attack that hits, notice that it specifies an attack that hits. It doesn't say primary. It doesn't say secondary, or missile or cannon or anything like that. It's just an attack that hits. You may spend 1 charge to perform a coordinate action. And then it has solo. Is that what that's it? Yeah, solo.
Yep.
While you defend or perform an attack, if there are no other friendly ships at range 0-1, you may spend a charge to roll 1 of your dice. Now, I assume that the charges are shared between the charges to perform a coordinate action and the charges to re-roll a die.
Yeah.
But I also noticed that the charges do not have the little arrow on them. So that means that you get 4 shots, 4 charges, which, to be fair, the way the games have been going, when 5 or 6 rounds is generally victory condition set up, like 4 charges is more than plentiful. I don't think they need to be rechargeable.
Yeah, I agree.
I like that too, right? I like the use of non-reoccurring charges sometimes.
Yep.
I just think it adds. You can add character or abilities. It's like crack shot, right? You can add abilities to cards without making them insanely overpowered.
Yeah.
I still think crack shot's pretty. I don't know. That's still a pretty insane ability, but
I don't know how I feel about L337's ability being on Rebel Han. I don't think the Rebel Falcon needed more things to make it better. I think when you have the Scum Falcon and you've got to spend 20 some odd points and upgrades to get it on par with what the Rebel Falcon can do, and then you take an ability that was up till now solely on the Scum Falcon and add it to the Rebel Falcon, like, what are we doing? Why? Because the Falcon wasn't good enough already. Like, we're gonna give it the title and the L337 co-pilot ability.
So to be fair, this is going to be only on this particular Han Solo. It can't be equipped on anybody else.
No, but this is tournament legal.
Right, exactly.
What else do you need on Han Solo? You have Chewbacca crew and
right,
the title.
But he's not going to get his constant rerolls on defense. He's limited to 4, and it's only 1 dice, so he's not going to be able to constantly like reroll that. And besides that, I mean, he doesn't have access to Bistan. Yes, it's still 3-gun turret, but he's not going to have access to trick shot either, so he can't do the hide behind the rock shenanigans that the other Han Solo can do. So while he loses a lot more of his offensive potential that he can normally do with the other Falcon, in exchange he gets better blues once he starts taking a few damage. I mean,
he gets better blues and a free focus with an evade action.
Assuming that he doesn't bump. So. Yeah. So I mean,
I'm down to see it, but I think that giving the Rebel Falcon more maneuverability seems a little bit much in my personal opinion. But
they already had Ninum, which already made that the same thing without the added drawback of making sure that you're damaged, so or not shielded in this case.
Yeah.
All right.
Just out of curiosity, were there any scum at the Battle of Yavin?
No.
Apparently not. There were interceptors in ships that we never saw that we can say were there for the purposes of releasing them for the game. But we can't give
Slave 1 is out there.
we can't say that Star Vipers were there or anything to give me a pre-construct Star Viper.
There are no Mandalorian commandos anywhere around either.
All right. So the next pilot is Iden Versio in the Interceptor. Now, I'm going to preface this by saying, since this is being able to be legal and standard, this right here, just like this, to some extent, this makes my day. Not only did you just give an Interceptor a free shield, which just seems crazy to me. Like, here you go, Interceptor. Have a free shield. You get 3 green dice. You're ultra maneuverable, and you get a free shield.
I mean, to be fair, they're going against proton torpedoes, so I mean,
I guess, I guess, but
And you
so
get a damage prevention every other turn,
yes, exactly. Before
or every 2 turns.
Yes, yep, you get to prevent. Yeah, it's a free evade, essentially. So
Yeah.
Yep, so you get a free evade every 2 turns. They're bolting sensitive controls onto there, which I have no issues with. Whatever, that's fine. I play with sensitive controls more often, minus Soon's Hirfeld. He's the only one I don't put in there. Put that on right now. And that's only because he's an I6. Anyway, but so now we have Iden. And she gets Predator and then Fanatic, which she never had before. But so essentially she got Stu's talents. And then the Fanatic essentially is a free calculate conversion on offense. So, but you have to be unshielded for it. So,
yeah, definitely really, really good. I think I prefer this version of Iden's ability versus the other one because the other one is a one and done. Although you could cancel out an entire attack, this one here, if you you can at least do it more often, and it incentivizes you to keep her alive. And at I4 with a 3-gun attack on an interceptor, yeah, that's really good.
Yeah,
I like it. I think this is good. I don't think I don't know if we'll see Fanatical. My guess is she'll either pop or live forever.
Well, Fanatical it's a weird way to think about it, but this is just my way of thinking. You could just run her over a rock to get rid of that shield and then have Fanatical active for the entire game.
I do not recommend that, by the way. As a person who's done that, I highly don't recommend it.
Fair.
All right, Vader is the next one, and he's not a TIE Defender, thank God. But what did
he
they
didn't
change?
fly that at the Battle of Yavin. I don't care what LucasArts says.
I know, thank God for that. So what did they change on Vader, JJ?
So his ability has changed here. First, before we go there, his stat line changed as well. He also has 3 shields on the chassis instead of the normal 2 that the X1 has. So his ability is changed to while you perform an attack, you may spend 1 force to change 1 blank result to a focus result, which is what they brought over. To a hit result. To what they brought over from his TIE Defender pilot ability, which is really great. And he also does not have the limitation from the TIE Defender where he can only spend the force on offense. So he can actually do both on this one here. He does still have his advanced starting computer, but he comes equipped with marksmanship, hate, and afterburners for this build, which makes him a really, really solid platform, making him a lot more reliable on offense for this particular chassis. And he's going to definitely do some damage.
Well, thank goodness he's more reliable on offense. If I remember footage correctly from our historical archives, he got shot out of the sky by the intergalactic version of an 18-wheeler that snuck up on him. So,
yeah, all right. And just a correction from the chat, and we went back up and looked at Iden. Iden actually you have to be damaged, so you have to actually take a physical damage card. It's not on the shield, so that's actually a little bit better than that makes me feel a little bit. I mean, not saying I wouldn't run the hell out of that, but that makes me feel a little bit better.
I don't know that I would now because that means you're 2 health away from death.
Yeah, now you do not want to do it, and you have to hit 2 obstacles, Charles, to get it out there.
Now, the main drawback for this Vader is the fact that you can't link your focus into or use the force to get that additional action for a target lock. You're going to have to make a choice here to either do the target lock to get that 3rd die on offense for Vader, or take a focus to mod your shots and not spend all your force. So that is the drawback to the change to his chassis, but still pretty good.
Yeah, no FCS. It's an automatic. You get no FCS on this. So,
yeah.
I don't know. I think that's kind of cool. There's the pack, right? And that's what you see with the TIE Interceptor on it. And then we have. This is where they officially confirm these will be legal for standard play. Now, this is where it's a little bit more interesting. They list on the... So this is from the AMG site. They list every pilot that is on here.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone. So they're going to get 20 ship cards, 2 oversized scenario upgrade cards, 8 Death Star trench tokens, 11 ship bases, and 1 rules insert. So essentially, for the Empire, we have Vader in the X1 that we saw. Then we have new TIE fighters, Backstabber, Mauler,
I wonder if
Dark
that'll be Mauler
Curse.
Mythal, just without like a different name.
Yeah.
Yep. Dark Curse, Wampa, the Iden, and then we're going to get Sigma 4, 5, 6, and 7 in the Interceptor, which I don't know what those are going to contain. Then we have new X-Wing cards. Garvin, which is why I always think Yarvin. Sorry, that's just a bad habit. Garvin, Luke, Jack Porkins, Biggs, Darklighter, Wedge, Han Solo in the YT-1300. Now we're going to get Dutch again, Dex, Tyree, and I don't... Tyree, is that how you say that?
Yes.
Pops, and Hull, and Oakland.
Yeah. So, and on the top of it, the 3 cards that they spoiled on top there, they did spoil. If you do like a super zoom, you can kind of make out what the wording art is for both Jack and Tyree. So for Tyree, his ability reads, while you defend, if there's another friendly ship at range 0 to 1, you may roll 1 additional defense die. And he has the hopeful subtitle on it. And then Jack Porkins, it looks like he still retains the same ability that he has, where he can roll for he can remove a stress and roll for damage. Now, the only thing that we can't really make out on his card, it looks like he has a upgrade that says unstable output engines. I think that's what it says there, but I can't really make out what it says there. So it's going to be really interesting to see like how they equip him out. So, yeah.
I'm going to jump into first edition real quick.
Yes, please do. Thank you. Because you could read us the abilities for those.
I was just going to say, Deslin said that Backstabber and Dark Curse were both first editions. So
yeah, I think Backstabber was the one where you couldn't spend tokens if he was behind you.
I think that's right, but hold on, I'm pulling it. Yeah, when attacking from outside the defender's fire. No, sorry. So Backstabber was when attacking from outside the defender's firing arc, roll 1 additional attack die. So that gave you a 3 attack TIE fighter as long as you were outside of the attack arc. And the other one was Dark Curse. Let's see here. Ooh, would erase it from the archives? No.
It doesn't exist.
Yeah. When defending, ships attacking you cannot spend focus tokens or re-roll attack dice.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, this is old school, but Dark Curse was an I6 and was 16 1.0 points.
So that would make him an I3.
Ish, yeah.
Yeah.
I3 to I4, somewhere in there. And then Backstabber was also an I6. Okay. In the TIE Fighters. They were both I6, so mid-level, mid-range pilots. And they were both 16 points, which in a 100-point game, that's a pretty significant point cost. So I would not probably cost them more or less than 4 to 5 points.
Yeah, I would say
maybe 3. I'd say between 3 and 4 is probably a safe bet for each of them.
Yeah.
Plus the cost of the upgrades. So
yeah.
Well, I think what's interesting, I think the big interesting thing here, right, is, we're going to do 2 things. The first, I think the interesting thing here is the fact that it's a 35 points. We don't know if it's total destruction. Are they forcing you to not, to engage a little bit, but really just go after, the objective here, which is obviously to shoot a proton torpedo in, the exhaust port. I don't know. So I think that's the interesting piece. I will kick off the next piece that I wanted to, before we get into any of the cup, the metadata, right? I want to say, we could go around the room and talk about what's exciting versus not exciting about this, or what we have concerns on. So, for me, the exciting thing is this means, we're getting other scenarios that we can play that may not have to be epic style, but can be closer to that feel, that'll allow us to have stuff to play when we're not prepping for a tournament, which I will admit, I have not played my Kyber Cup list except for in Kyber Cup. And hence you could probably see my, you could see my performance based on that. I've been playing other things. I ran a Rebel list, last week at locals, and a dual defender list, which, I got a lot of shit for, but, anyway,
Rebels.
Because I never fly Rebels. I thought I'd give it a chance. So, anyway, I flew a fun Rebels list last week that I thought was fun and not meta at all. And anyway, and then so some of me is very excited to have something else to put on the table and play, right? Because I think that helps draw things in. What I do worry a little bit about is how limited this scenario is, right? Can I take scum ships? Are you going to tell me I can't take a scum ship? Are you going to tell me I can't fly a separatist ship? I mean, technically speaking, right? We wouldn't do that. Technically speaking, it doesn't fit that. So does that scenario then limit you to just those two factions, and then kind of force you into, pigeonhole you into that? I don't know. Charles, what are your thoughts?
I mean, don't get me wrong. I would love to see scum in here, but if we're going to just hammer into the cinematic accuracy, we didn't really officially see scum represented in the Star Wars cinematic universe until JJ told me he isn't drafting any of you.
Yes, because I'm not a team captain. But anyway, go on.
Fair enough. Scum wasn't really seen until episode 5, which is Empire Strikes Back, which is well after this. Or maybe Jango Fett, but Jango was dead before this because Jango died at the beginning of I think the end of episode 2 or the beginning of episode 3. Wherever the big scene with Mace Windu beheading him was.
Yeah.
And was that 2? Attack of the Clones. Okay. So we really didn't have bounty hunter presence really for episode 4 for this entire battle. So I don't think they belong. You definitely cannot do Republic because this is well after the Republic is dead, because they kind of become the Empire. There's no place for Resistance or First Order in this scenario. So I think if you open the door for scum, then we've got to figure out how to make scenarios like this. But that's not to say that down the line we don't see a the Battle of Naboo, right, where we get a Republic versus CIS set, or a I don't know where scum was prevalent in. Maybe we get a Shadows of the Empire like Skyhook, and that's where they bring back the Star Viper, because that's really the only place that it ever existed is in the Shadows of the Empire series, or book for that matter. But either way, you know what I mean? There's not very many scenarios where scum is going to fit. So I would say that I would prefer this to stay as pure as possible and stay Rebel versus Empire.
I think that's a good point, actually, Charles. I do now feel bad for scum. But I guess that's a good point, and maybe that's something they just weren't able to tell us. But that makes a lot of sense if we could get 2 more scenarios that they've already planned out. One for the Resistance versus FO, and one for Separatists versus a Republic. And then the question I would say is maybe the 4th one that comes is where you get a scum only one that could be subbed in if you want to play the multiverse Star Wars universe, and you can sub in either pack in all the packs a scum version list.
Well, I
for
mean, to
any
be
of
fair,
these.
you could potentially do a solo style scenario because
Yes.
Solo is the entire movie is scum, right? We've
Yep.
got Maul and Kira and Solo and all of the different players. That is all scum. We also have some stuff from like Rebels and Resistance that are scum based as well, with Cad Bane and things like that. And as JJ said, now we have Mando. Although to be fair, with the exception of a few like quick, like pot shot fights and one like inter-atmospheric fight, there's not really been a whole lot of interstellar dogfighting in the Mandalorian as of yet.
So, and just to kind of clarify for that, so there are a couple of like battle packs that they could make that would include Scum versus another faction, or at least as a third faction. One of them, particularly, is the Battle of Adelon, where the Mandalorian forces go and assault the Empire from behind to try to free the rebels from going out. You could do that as a Scum versus Empire type scenario there, or do it like as a Scum Rebels versus Empire, with Empire having a larger force. If you want to do like that kind of gameplay, you can also do the Battle of Exegol, where there were definitely Scum ships there, very visibly against the First Order, and the other one that I could think of as well. Oh my gosh, it just escaped my mind. But anyway, there are different like battles that they could do that could incorporate Scum into these kind of packs. So I am kind of interested to see like what kind of standard loadouts or like standard pilots that they come out with. Honestly, some people are kind of upset that there's no like new ships that are coming out that AMG is putting out for this. For me, honestly, as a person who collects every single faction, every single ship, I'm okay with doing just card packs only, because I do enjoy having like a variance, right? Like diversity is the spice of life. So I do enjoy that.
So I agree with you and disagree with.
And just to clarify, not to be the only way going forward for X-Wing. I just want this as a separate option from what we normally get from it. So yeah.
And I'm a little iffy on redoing existing pilots because I already hate having to guess which Poe I'm flying against. You know what I mean? I hate having to guess which version of what pilot I'm going to be against. So
we all know that Rebel Fenn, Sheath of Beef Fenn, is now the best version of Fenn. So just saying.
Which is hilarious that Charles ran that in our event and then it sucked back then, but now like they're just like, hey, let's make Rebel Fenn in this fucking attack shuttle just be here you go. Crazy. All right, well, cool. Well, thank you. I'm looking forward to it. I will say, JJ, if they do not announce any new that they're at least working on new ships, I will be immensely disappointed. Flat out. Period. Like, I don't care what anyone says. Like, that has always been a quip of mine. And as somebody who knows a playtester, we are officially at the end of the playtesting cycle that person was involved with when they switched.
FFG ran, yeah.
Yep. When they switched it over. So if they don't at least announce, yes, we are working on, and you don't have to tell me what it is. Just tell me you're working on it. And I'll tell you what. So this is my thing, especially if you get AMG to watch this shit. If you are doing some sort of a High Republic or an Old Republic and you're going to bring a whole new fucking faction in, and the main reason that you all have not told us anything is because of that, then I'm okay with that at this point, right? Like at that point, if that's the case, if the reason that you're not doing it is because of this, then I guess at this point, I'll be excited when that new faction comes. So
yeah, exactly.
All right, so should we get into Kyber Cup? Because I'm kind of excited about Kyber Cup, not as much as you probably are.
Well, I think it's a shorter discussion to do the Flight Academy because it's only like 8 lists that we're gonna do.
I'm gonna ask no. and I'm gonna pull rank here, I guess, and and there's a reason for it though. And when we get to the statistics, there's an actual reason for it.
All right, let's do it.
Okay. All right. So here we have, and I guess I have the graphic off. Is that what it is? All right, fix that. There we go. Now you can see it in all its glory. So what I did is I went and I took all of the lists that we had, right? I took all of the lists, the total number of players, total number of lists, total number of top cut, and I started to break them down. So I'll show you really what the main output is, this graph right here, right? And I'll explain the color coding in a few seconds. But what I wanted to do is I want to review what percent of top cut they made, percent of total lists that they had, and then kind of look at the difference between that. Then we're going to get into what's the difference in the faction top cut versus the faction list percentages, right? And then we're going to compare those differences and see where the lists come floating out. Now, again, I'll apologize. This is what I do for a living to some extent, right? Like, I cut and dice statistics in different ways for different reasons. So I'll be honest with you, this is probably a little bit of an overkill. But this is Tanner. This is what I do. So, and again, I do this shit for a living in the healthcare system. So, anyway, so Kyber Cup essentially had 241 players. Their top cut consisted of anybody that was 4-1 and better. So if you had one loss or one draw, you got into cut. We will look at the 5-0 players. I will say the one caveat here that I have is that we had two different point setups, so the numbers are going to be a little skewed. And so when JJ, I say the reason I want to look at the difference between the two is because when we finish this, we are going to go into the Galactic, Academy thing, right?
That makes sense.
And then we're going to look at the difference between the two, because these Kyber Cup numbers are a little bit unbalanced because of the fact that we had a points change up halfway through. And I don't know how to dissect it because I did not save all the bloody lists and what everybody was at back then. I didn't even think about that. That would have been a good analysis to see where the two differences were. But anyway, so. All right, so we have the total list here at 241. Rebels comes in at 44, Empire at 43, Scum at 37 only 21 for Resistance, 45 for First Order, which seemed to be popular. Republic is at 28, and 23 total Separatists. In the top cut, so basically 4-1 and better, you have 9 Rebel, 7 Empire, 6 Scum, 3 Resistance, 8 First Order, 7 Republic, and only 2 Separatists. So what then I did is I said, okay, hey, what's the total list percentage, right? So we have a total percent of all these different lists, correct?
Yep.
Sorry, my computer's loading a second. Hold on. Okay, sorry. All right, now my computer's done being a boob. So essentially, when we look at the total percent of lists, they had 44 out of 241. So that's 18%. So if you look across the board, Resistance and Separatists are pretty low. Republic, I think people changed. I could be wrong about that, but I think people changed factions, JJ, and I don't know, maybe you're closer to this than I am, but I think
there were definitely people who changed factions after the last points update because we were given the option where we took a week off to come up with a list. There was an incentive to still stay in the same faction, but there were definitely people who switched factions from 2 weeks ago. So yeah.
All right. So that's why I wanted to go through these first, because these are a little bit skewed. So Separatists and Resistance are the two low-end outliers. Now we look at percent of top cut, right? So that is essentially if you take the total number of top cut lists out of the total top cut. So Rebel comes in 3% higher. Empire, Scum, and Resistance are on the negative side. First Order comes out flat. Then we have, from there, we have the Republic at 5% over and Separatists at negative 5%.
Ooh.
So Separatists come in pretty low and Rebel come in pretty high. So if we look at a variance standard, those are the big variances that we have right there, right?
Yeah, now I do find it interesting that Separatists came in lower for this melee, especially after the change, because I believe that the Rogue class Starfighter is a really solid platform. Just having the opportunity to play against it in a few rounds, particularly on the Separatists with that version of Cat Bane. I do think that there is a pretty high ceiling for that particular pilot, and I think that it would be enough to help improve the meta for the Separatists in particular. But then again, we're only 2 weeks in so far, so I don't think that there's proper a proper exposure to that particular chassis as of yet. But I do expect for Separatists to go up for that.
Yep. And I wouldn't be surprised, but we'll see, because we're going to look at the other numbers later.
The issue that I have with that, JJ, just between just us, I think the reason, and call me out on this, Chris, because you're the Separatist player. When we look at chassis for chassis, Rebel versus Separatist is a lot of high agility but easy pop ships, right? Like you can one hit almost every ship that Separatist has, with the exception of maybe like the bomber and the belly rub, right? Outside of that, they're all one shots. There is no like big tanky style ships. Whereas when we flip over to Rebel, there's not a Rebel ship that gets played, with the exception of maybe a Z95, which, let's be fair, nobody runs. There's not a Rebel ship that can get one shot. You can't one shot an X-Wing without some very creative crit training. You're not going to one shot a Y-Wing or a B-Wing or the Falcon. Like, it takes considerable amounts of effort to get through one single ship. Whereas when you're flying a Separatist list, in order to have the bodies that you need on the mat to stay functional, it's just like TIE interceptors, right? When I play against John on his TIE interceptor list, as long as I can swat a TIE interceptor around, I'm keeping pace points wise, regardless of objectives. But the minute that it's the other way around, and all of a sudden, like, now I can't swat ships out of the sky, I lose to Rebels every time with the exact same list and the exact same strategy, because it's harder to kill Rebel ships than it is to kill Separatist, or it is to kill Jedi, or it is to kill anything that's a high agility, low health ship. So I think right now, and this is why they were good in 1.0, we have removed the need for them to have half points again, which is exactly what it was in 1.0. That's why B-Wings and X-Wings were so strong, and Y-Wings in 1.0, because there were no half points. And it took so much effort to chew through a ship that by the time you got done with it, they've eaten you alive, or they've gotten enough objective points that they're not worried about the one ship that it took you 3 rounds to kill. When you've got a game that ends at round 5, round 6, 3 rounds to kill an X-Wing, you've already lost the game.
I actually agree with Charles here in the aspect of, in terms of cheap beef. And I think that's the discussion Charles is bringing to the table. It's cheap beef, right? Separatist has 0 cheap beef. Now, I will say that Empire is similar in the fact that Empire does not have cheap beef either.
Correct.
So
but when you look at your statistics, though,
yes,
like,
that's why they
look at the lists that are making it and the lists that aren't. The only outlier there that I can see really is FO, and that's because FO doesn't have any cheap beef. but their pilots that they do have are just really well balanced. But that's just, again, me. This is something that I've been saying since the beginning of scenario play, is when you create a situation where more ships on the board equal better victories, you're leaning hard into the rebels, forte, because that's what they do, is lots of ships with lots of ass that are low cost.
Yep. Now, the second graph that I have right there is what I did is I said, okay, hey, now let's break down how many of my actual lists got into Top Cut. And again, this is going to be a little bit longer piece where when we get to the GSP thing, it'll go really quickly, right? Like that'll be a lot quicker. But the idea is to say, okay, well, if my percent of Top Cut and I'll pick on Rebels, my percent of Top Cut is 21%. I was 18% over the total list. That means technically I scored 3 points, right? Like I'm 3 points higher. But then I said, okay, well, what about my actual faction Top Cut, right? Versus the faction list. So, like, again, it's basically if I take 9 out of 44, I only come in at 20%, which is a little bit lower. But I come in at 20% versus the 21%. Because and this is where my predictability. If I have X amount of lists, my predictability for my faction cut should be almost identical to my Top Cut percentage if it's a balanced faction. And that's where the statistics get a little bit more unique. So, and I apologize for the 0% should be yellow, and I'm dumb. But here's where Scum comes in at 2%, Resistance comes in at 7% over what they would be predicted to be, and Separatists come in at only 4%, but Republic comes in at 8%, right? So Republic goes up a little bit. Rebels definitely go down, which means we have more people flying Rebels, right? Than we have the skilled people getting in, but we don't have, like, it means it's harder to get the Top Cut wins. Whereas in Scum, we're getting more Top Cut wins versus the percentage of that. Right? So does that make sense? I didn't lose anyone?
Nope.
Good.
Okay, good. I'm sorry. And I just apologize because I don't know everybody's background super well. So then what I did is then I said, okay, well, now let's do a combined ranking, right? So let's look at like what the difference between those two are. Rebels comes up 1%. Empire is -1%. Scum is neutral. Resistance comes out at 3%. First Order is neutral. Republic comes out 7%, and Separatists are neutral. So then I went ahead and ranked them all, right? And anything that, and again, it's a very silly ranking, but, if you think about it, the top faction is Republic. Republic, even after the Jedi nerfs, overperformed. Now, I'm going to clarify this to say, again, this is a mixed result tournament. We're going to look at this number. And I don't know if we want to do that before we look at lists. That's up to you guys how you want to do that. We can look at the percentages of the GSP thing and then kind of go into that and then compare the two and then look at all the lists. Or we could go lists and then come back to it. But the interesting thing here is Rebels does still come out 1% over and Empire comes out 1% down. But Resistance is up and Republic is insanely high compared to everybody else. So Republic still grossly outperforms that. And the only difference is that they had 3 rounds of old rules versus 2 rounds of new rules.
Yeah, agreed. I'm definitely interested in comparing the stats with what we saw so far from the 2 rounds for the GSP, just to compare the performance.
Okay, so what you want me to do is now skip down and go back and let's look at the actual numbers for them, right?
Yeah, let's take a look at it.
All right. So here we have, again, the Flight Club. Oh, I skipped all of the Flight Club stuff. I'm silly. Sorry. I apologize. JJ set the document up wrong.
Yay.
We did originally. I didn't know how to move it all without. I didn't have enough time to move it all. All right. So here is and again, I'm going to caveat this real quickly because in my line of work, there's a couple of things that we have to point out. One, this is 2 rounds versus 5. That's a difference. 2, the old numbers happen every week. These happen consistently next to each other. There is a difference. I don't care what anybody says. There is still technically a difference in being able to play 5 rounds in one day versus, the
over the course of weeks. Yeah.
Yes. Yep. So there is a little bit of a difference there. We don't know what that variation is, but I can tell you that there is a variation there. So I just want to point that out. But we had a total of 39 players in the GSP tournament on Saturday. That means there was a top cut of 8. 18% of lists for Rebel, 15% of Empire, 28%. So Scum was highly represented, which I thought was interesting. I'm going to start there and say that's interesting. Resistance was 5%. First Order was 8%. 5% Republic, and Separatists came in at 21%. And this is no offense, JJ, but this is where Charles's point actually kind of hits home.
Yeah.
Like aggressively hits home. So, in top cut, Rebels were 25%, Empire was 25%, Scum came in at 38%, which is, again, that's just holy shit. Resistance is 13%, and there was no representation from the other 3. I will also caveat a secondary thing that this was done in America time, right? So I don't know how many European players or Australian players or anything like that we had, but I will say with the smaller number of players, this sample size is not a representation of the X-Wing community.
Yeah.
All right. So you can see the difference. Obviously, Separatist is the loser here. Resistance comes in close 9% for Scum. Scum's obviously up. Empire is very high as well, obviously, because of one specific ship only, which I'm going to have to eat crow, I'm sure, when I go to my locals tomorrow. If they watch my show. I'm not going to say anything. We'll see if they actually watch my show. So then what we did is we did this is, again, the second rating is based on your predictive, thing. Where were you predictive, right, in your thing? So Rebels came in at 29%, so they were 4% better performing in their segment. Empire was 8% better. Scum came in at 27% better. Resistance was 50%. So and again, Resistance had throws this off a little bit because it's too fucking lists out of the whole thing. Like they do a little bit of a sham right there, right? That is, and then the other ones come in neutral, right? So when we take all the percentages and put them next to each other, Rebel comes out 5% higher. Empire comes in at 9% higher. Scum levels itself out, which is what we saw in the other one. Resistance is 22% higher. Resistance way overperformed, but again, they're a weird outlier. And then we have 4, 3, and 10% for the lower factions. Now we got to scroll all the way to the bottom. And now we have the comparison between the two, right? Rebel, comparatively, between the two, Rebel technically performed better, but they still came in ranked 3 overall. Empire, on the other hand, overperformed, and they came in number 2, whereas they were number 5 before. So whatever the points balance is, we see the points balance demonstrate that Empire come in higher than they did before. Scum comes in at number 4, identical. So Scum is performing in the exact same thing as it had before. Resistance has a higher combined ranking, but technically Resistance comes in at number 1, and they came in at number 2 in Kyber Cup. So Resistance is actually overperforming over what people are predicting and over what it is, right?
Interesting. Yeah.
Is there a graph with ship counts? So sorry, I'm going to stop what I'm doing. So the answer to Ferex 19 is I do not have a ship count, but that is if I could get these people to let me have metadata, I would 100% get you a ship count. And I think that's a valid discussion point and valid discussion point by scenario. So it is on my agenda of things I would like to look at, but I'm not invited to this X-Wing Elite community that analyzes statistics yet. So if you have an in, tell them, Tanner, this is what Tanner does for a living other places. So I would happily do this with X-Wing statistics for them. All right, anyway, sorry. So Resistance feels like a sleeper. First Order came in before at number 4, but now it feels like they're underperforming in the other one. Republic comes in and feels like they are definitely underperforming, probably because of the nerf. And then Separatist comes in at negative 10%. They are the last faction. So even after Separatist gets all this love, Separatist still comes in at a lower percentage.
That's rough. Jeez.
So, I know I talked a lot. I've spent a lot of time having, like, okay, like, I guess it didn't take me more than a couple hours to actually do all this stuff. But,
yeah, I gotta say, I do find the statistics like really interesting so far. Now, granted, this is off of like the limited information that we've received over the last 2 weeks from the points changes as well as the new pack and then these events that are happening currently for X-Wing. But it's really interesting to see the indications of where the meta is going so far based on these early predictions for what we have for the statistics on it. I think that that Resistance overperforming by that much early on, that's actually pretty interesting so far to see. And I was just trying to scratch my brain to see like what kind of lists I've seen for Resistance, and everything that I keep going back to is either like 4 X-Wings or like a mix and match of like the Y-Wings. I have a list with 3 Y-Wings, a pod, and Chewie. That seemed pretty interesting as well. So I think that there's a lot more to see in the Resistance faction that people haven't tried out as of yet, because it's easy to see the lore of the Rebels and the and Resistance with their ships. So yeah.
Charles, what are your thoughts? Like, you've been very quiet, and you're a spreadsheet guy too. Like, I'm not the only spreadsheet guy, and I know Charles has some sort of analytics background a little bit.
Yeah, I do, and it's just none of this is surprising, at least to me. Like, again, we're in a meta situation right now where more ships equals more victory, right? That's the way that I look at it, and whether it's right or wrong, I have not been disproved by data. The factions that have the cheapest way to get beef are the factions that are doing the best. The only one that surprised me, I'll be honest, was Scum at 27%. That kind of blew my mind because I'm just used to... Or wait, no, that's not Scum. That's Resistance. Disregard. So, no, there was no surprises. I apologize. No, there was no surprises. I wish that it was a more level meta, but again, I have to be realistic, right? I want to exist in a gaming world where it comes down to, and I'm going to quote Top Gun, right? It's not it's not the plane, it's the pilot in the box, right? Yes, the people that design the plane set the metrics for it and what it can do, but the person sitting in the cockpit knows what it's fully capable of. But unfortunately, that's just not the case with X-Wing. You can't take a TIE fighter, a Trade Federation droid, a M3A, an X-Wing, the base level ship for each faction. You can't run them straight across the board and have an equal play experience with every one of the ships. It's just not possible, right? There's always, every shift of the meta is going to bring a new list to rise. It's just how it's going to work, right? Yes, can you get around it? Sure. Can you work a list that is an outlier and do well with it? Sure. Is it going to be consistent? No. But you can show up to a tournament with a list that nobody's ever seen and go ridiculous. You know what I mean? I'll use an example from 2.0. I went to Amsterdam. I came back with 3 Fangs, 2 M3As, and a mining guild tie. And I tore through our local here using that list every time. No one could figure out what to do with it. No one could really, you know what I mean? Once the meta began to shift during that time, it eventually like started to lose. But at the beginning, where no one was running 3 Fangs with a smattering of other ships and in 2 separate formations, people didn't know how to react to it. So yes, there's always going to be outliers that kind of set things off a little bit, but ultimately the cream rises, right? The people that put the effort into putting in the reps, the people that are running the numbers, theory crafting, doing what they can to build the most strategically acceptable lists are doing well, right? My outlier, my 3 big ship list does really well until someone figures out how to just blast one of them off the board and focus fire, and then I'm down to 2, and then I have no hope. As long as I can keep people focused on spreading damage across 3 big base ships, I'll win every time. It's a war of attrition that I will win because I do more damage single target than you. But the minute someone turns and points all their guns at one ship and goes, hey, Bosk, I really don't like you, and you have no evasion dice, so I'm just going to shoot you off the board now. Like, there's nothing I can do about that, and that list crumbles. But as long as I can do the best I can to avoid that from happening, then it's not terrible. But none of this is really surprising to me, that the ships that have the better beef and the better ship counts are doing well. I would like to see it more level across the board, but that's just not how meta works. If that was the case, then there would be no power shift in Magic the Gathering. There would be no power shift from Legion. There'd be no power shift in Destiny. There's always going to be people that find ways to use certain abilities to a way that maybe either they were intended or weren't intended to give them a leg up in battle. And there's always going to be people like me that fly what they find to be fun with, regardless of the outcome. So
I don't know. I kind of disagree with it a little bit, mainly because I still think that 2.5 is still being, at least with the current points like that we have right now, the point exchange. I still think that there's still a lot of combos and pilots or not pilots, like lists that haven't had enough time to really had a chance to like fully be explored and used. And I think that's what we're starting to see, especially with the last wave of bans with like Trajectory Simulator and Auto Blasters. Now people have to like consider other options here. One of the biggest things that we've seen in the shift was the increased use of proton torpedoes, specifically in the Rebel faction, where people are now using that as like hammer lists to go against other stuff. And that counter to that would be ships that can either negate the use of target locks either through jam or limit it with like another rebel ship like Banver Yarvo. It creates like different avenues for players to discover new things that we just haven't seen as of yet. And I think that with by the time next weekend comes around, where we see our first Galaxies event here for Gold Squadron, I think that we're going to see a big difference in what was previously in like from what we saw at Adepticon. So it's going to be really interesting, I would think.
Yep, and I agree. I will tell you, to me, the surprising thing is the resistance piece. No matter what, they're doing better than they should be, than what we've given them credit for. So either that means there's a unique set of resistance players that are only flying resistance and doing really well, or resistance has more legs than not. I will tell you, the Flight Club gives me hope for Scum, though. What that means is that if you know how to fly Scum, you're going to win. But a lot of people fly Scum, and that's why their rating kind of goes neutral. And that's only because they're fun to fly, right? Like, I won't lie and say that it is fun to put Boba the fuck up on the table, period. Like, I insanely love being able to put Boba on the table. Actually, I like it more than I like putting Darth Vader Defender on the table, Even for all the lulls that I get, for that, I still think for some reason people hate Boba less than they hate Vader. So like maybe it's a 1.0 thing, but
Boba had his timeout when they nerfed his crew slot. So now he's coming back. He's like, hey guys, all right, nobody hates me anymore. I'm all right.
Yeah, I think it's a lot. It's a lot like having kids. Like if you forget what it's like to have a newborn because your kid is like 6 or 7, you start to go, oh, it'd be nice to have a newborn again. And then you have a newborn and you go, what the fuck was I thinking? Like Boba's no different. Like everybody hated Boba and then he went away for a while and everybody's like, you know what? Maybe Boba wasn't as bad as we thought he was. And then Boba comes back and everybody will eventually go, yeah, you know what? He was.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to go through lists now. But here's the deal, JJ. So I'm going to make a deal with you because you love to read every upgrade on every card. And we're not going to do that today. Like, if there is a standout upgrade that you're like, oh my God, I can't believe that is on one of these ships, then tell us. Other than that, please do not read every upgrade because we will have another hour and I don't have an hour. I want to do a spoiler cast tonight and for Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I do not have another hour. And I guarantee you, Charles is texting me right now saying, you better make sure JJ doesn't read every fucking upgrade on here.
That's not what I'm doing, but awesome. JJ, you listen to your ancestors. You read whatever upgrades you want to read.
Oh, you're killing me, son.
You're a Giants fan. We're used to you sucking up time, so.
Oh.
Wow.
Oh. Yep. So, all right. So we're going to go through, JJ wanted to go through Flight Club first. So we're going to go through the fuel list for Flight Club that we're going to go through first for it. So go ahead, have at it, JJ. You can have first crack at it.
Sure. So the first one here, Sean Oakley, he was the top 2-0 player here. He was flying Rebel list with Wedge, Luke, Dudge, and Fenrow in the Sheath of Bead class shuttle and standard loadout that you see across the board. The one thing that was interesting was actually seeing Fen round the Sheath of Bead with Swarm Tactics and Tristan Wren, which is a really interesting way to load him out. So he would swarm Dutch up to an I-6, giving him that shot with the plasma torpedo. And if it connects, it brings down that extra shield that you need. And then that proton torpedo shots from Wedge and Luke are that much more devastating. And what's even better is Tristan Wren allows for an additional reroll for a missile attack or like an ordnance attack.
Yep.
And so if you only need a single reroll, it's basically giving all these ships FCS so that way they don't have to spend their locks and they can continue to shoot turn after turn. So that's pretty good.
Yeah. Charles, you want to take the next one or?
Sure.
Colton.
2 seconds here. I'm getting into the dock. I apologize.
Because I will say there is a unique Y-wing on there. I don't even know what that Y-wing
Colton
does.
Grigsby?
Yeah.
Got it. All right. So Colton Grigsby running Scum and Villainy. He's got Bosk in the YV666 with Notorious, Queel, Perceptive, Greedo, Contraband, and Ablative. This seems pretty normal for Bosk. I don't like Queel, but I see the utility. I have not had the opportunity to run Cad Bane yet, but Cad Bane with HLC, Jamming Beam, I'm assuming just because it's 0 points, Daredevil, Electrotraff missiles, Contraband, Engine upgrade, Zuckuss, and
the title.
Oh, the title. I'm like, what is that? Okay.
Yeah.
Lena Kai in the BTLA with the Typhron belly run, dorsal turret, and proton torps, and then Sarisu rounding it out with proton torpedoes. I am not 100% on what Lena Kai's ability is. I don't really run a whole lot of Scum Y-Wings, so I'm going to refer to JJ on this.
Yeah. So she's an I-5 pilot that came in with the last pack that came with the 2 Y-Wings and the Fugitives and Collaborators pack. Her ability, basically, she has you in her front half, and she's outside of your front arc. She gets a free target lock at the start of engagement. So she's a really good ship to fly past people at an angle, get that free lock, get a shot off, and not take any shots back, which is really good for a Y-Wing. So, yeah.
All right. Next one is Ben Lorking, and he's running Vader with Clusters, Malice, Juke, and Wampa, Valen, 2 ISB, Jingoist, and Ident. So I'll be honest to tell you, this is probably the standard setup that we're seeing, with all with Ties and Defender Vader. So I'm not gonna go into it anymore. I will tell you, cluster missiles I thought was unique until I saw what it did, and then I decided that HLC can literally just burn in hell. Like, seriously, there is zero reason to run HLC when you can run cluster missiles. Like, I feel very ashamed I did not figure that out. Like, seriously. Especially because I ran cluster missiles on everything. Like, how many times I never thought about putting it on Vader. But yeah, well, you can spend all your force and get it back, hopefully. Yeah, okay. Kenneth Scher is the next one.
Yep, so he's running non-lum in the Rogue Class Starfighter with Swarm Tactics, Protons, Rockets, and Cannons, and Munitions Failsafe Caval in the B-Wing with Proton Rockets, which, side note, if you manage to get a shot off with Caval and Proton Rockets, that is a 6-die attack. So that is really, really good. He has the Mandalorian there with Sabajro Press as a crew, which is really interesting there for the Mando, and then Bosk with the Z95 version with Predator marksmanship and cluster missiles as well. Probably trying to get off the double shot, hopefully trying to trigger the marksmanship and crit combo twice. Really interesting that he's able to fit all those ships there. That's a really solid list actually, and going 2-0, that's a good beat. Really like this list a lot.
Yeah, I'll say the only thing I don't like about it is Caval, but that's just, and maybe I'm a Charles. Like I would, that's a 5-point Y-wing I could sub out for another 5-point ship, I guess. Like, that's Cad Bane. I could put Cad Bane in there. I don't know. Like, I'm sorry, but like, that's
still, I mean, a 6-die proton rocket, that could be pretty good.
Sure, especially with the ship that can, you have to line it up against lower. Nope. Sorry, I'm done. I don't
know. At I5, and you get a focus from Savage Press, you get a double modded rocket shot with false transponder codes jamming you. I mean, it's a pretty big punch. It really is. So
look, all I'm gonna say is that the proof is in the pudding, and he made a cut with this. So,
well, he went 2-0.
Oh, he went 2-0. Oh,
yeah. These are all 2-0 lists. These are all 2-0.
Oh, never mind. He didn't make cut. Then Caval's trash. Just kidding. No.
Love it. Love it. All right. The next list that we have,
Darth Vader himself, Hayden, running a Galactic Empire list. With,
wow, really?
Darth Vader.
Get out now. Just get out.
We have the only difference variation on this one here is that he went with Wampa with Disciplined and Valen Reuter with Marksmanship, and he was actually the second matchup that they had on the stream there, where they jousted against a CIS list. Was pretty interesting, but Vader basically killed one vulture with every single shot
cluster
missiles, which
was horrible.
Ridiculous.
It was disgusting. That's when I finally said they're gonna hate me. They're gonna hate me at my locals tomorrow because I'm not gonna run cluster missiles. Iden's different too, though. By the way, Iden's a Procadine Iden.
That's right.
Yeah, that's huge. Just so you know, that's a huge difference. I think I like the Iron Cannon, but for this type of a list, this list is saying, no, I'm gonna go for extreme murder, and that's it.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's all it's doing.
Yeah.
Though I will tell. Okay, so I'm gonna make a comment here, and this is nothing against the Separatist player, but there was 3 mistakes that Separatist player made that swung the game in Empire's favor. No questions asked. And again, yes, I know I'm sidelining here. Like, I'm the guy on the sidelines saying I would do it, but I run Separatist, and I make a lot of mistakes too because I'm not the greatest player. But I watched that. Like Vader 4K. Why'd you let Vader 4K? You're a vulture. You know better than that.
And taking Seer out of the fight in the process.
Yeah, why did Seer on the top of the board? Oh, okay. Bye-bye. I get you don't want to lose Seer, I get that. I 100% understand why you, to some extent, would do that. But they prioritize. They brought a alpha strike list with separatists, and then like prioritize the stupid mission points. And anyway, let's whatever. Moving on.
Yeah.
I still don't think you kill Vader, but they took enough ties off the board. I'm sorry. Like, they took so many ties off the board. Like, you could have taken 2 more ties off the board. Yeah, you lost 2, but you lost 2 because you let Vader freaking juke you like twice. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Cluster Vader needs to lose. I'm telling you right now, Vader needs to lose his missile slot. Period.
Yeah, I agree. I'm okay with him with the cannon. That's fine. But yeah, he's got to lose the cluster missiles. It's really bad with Juke and Malice. So yeah, absolutely.
Yep. And hopefully nobody in my local is watching this because tomorrow they're going to hate me. All right, next one, Levi. JJ, you can have this shit list because nobody else wants to talk about it.
So this is the double tapping B-Wings with Cassian Andor support in the UT-60D. And then Ahsoka Tano with Juke and Brilliant Innovation with Mac Pulse Warheads. Really a good way to get the B-Wings to keep time on target. Braylon absolutely loves having Cassian, so that way he can turn around wherever he needs to. But yeah, these B-Wings with HLC and Crackshot on Braylon and 10-num with HLC and Tractor Beam. You can Tractor Beam first with 10-num and then get a HLC shot if you tractor them into the bullseye range. Really, really good. And then follow up with Braylon and do the same thing. It's a really hard-hitting list. If it all works out. So
yeah.
Wait, so this double tap B-Wings are good? Who knew?
Yeah, even without Trajectory Simulator.
Yeah. At least we could say this is a little bit more of an honest setup. This still feels a little scummy. How about that? It still feels
those Trajectory Simulator B-Wings, only an asshole would run those. I don't know anybody that's that desperate for a win.
Only people that wear Giants hats, it seems like.
Fair.
All right. Charles, you want the next one? You can
the
pick.
Resistance one?
You can pick.
I'll wait. I'll wait and go over the shitty scum list that I see over here.
All right. So Eric Garshall is running a Resistance list, one of the 2 in the whole tournament, with Zori Bliss. And she is standard loadout. Kaz with Notorious, shield upgrade, and the Fireball, which I thought was a little bit spicy with that shield upgrade there, because you could run missiles on them, and I like that better typically, but I understand the logic in this. And Poe with Swarm Tactics, probably, which is my assumption, is to bring Zori up to the similar initiative. And then Covenal, which I'm very excited to see because that's one of my favorite ships in Resistance with Leia, R4, and Heroic. So nothing super special about this. I will say Kaz is pretty unique, but I like this Resistance list. It's very weird though how they fly, because you have very slow ships, and maybe they just fly like a Rebel list, I guess. Then very slow. So. All right, Charles, you can have the next list from the lucky person that lucked out and happened to just one-shot Fen in a round, but didn't really actually put the work in to have a good list.
So I will start by just saying this is the Boba. I do like this Boba build. I like Notorious on it. Everything else is pretty much the standard Boba loadout. Would you agree, JJ, that that's pretty standard for Boba?
Yeah.
All right.
Absolutely.
Where this kind of goes off the rails a little bit, and I'm honestly pissed that I never thought about doing this, is taking the Kira trick shot mindset that we would normally run on the Scum Falcon with Han, so that you get the extra die there, and sticking that on a front back arc fire spray that can drop bombs. Throwing in Drosta on there so you get a second set of bombs so that you can run proxies and clusters, the 2 largest pieces of cardboard to ever hit the board. It's really good. And especially with Eamon's ability to drop on a hard 3. That's just ridiculous. It's like Trajectory Simulator, but in a fire spray. It's always out the back, but to be fair, it's the same as the front. There's no difference. I do like Kanan and the Hawk with Compassion and Ahsoka. I assume using the Force to try and keep the fire sprays alive and just keeping him out of the fight as long as possible, keeping him in range of the fire sprays but out of range of everybody else as your support ship. All in all, I really like this list. I may or may not be stealing this list. I really, really enjoy dual fire sprays. I ran dual fire sprays at LVO. And so being able to throw, because at LVO you couldn't fit more than 2 fire sprays on a list. Like that, you were fat enough that there was no room for else. Yeah. So having a support ship with 2 fire sprays are already busted and too strong anyway. You give me the ability to have a support ship in there, and I'm in 100%. I think this is a really well crafted list, JJ. So congrats to you on that, my friend. Even if you are a Giants fan.
Yeah, I gotta say, the Ahsoka Tano ability I actually used on both of my games, and it actually came in really, really handy because essentially what it does is the way I play both of my games is that I had Eamon and Kanan in the center, and then Boba as my flanker to come in from the edges. And I would keep Kanan towards the back of the board to like claim those objectives or contest the objectives that are towards the back of the board, and keep my arc pointed at Iman. And what I could do is that I can like bank in my Kanan to make sure that the rear half would go towards Eamon, so I can give that red focus to Eamon to start off. And the previous turn, I would have had a obstacle already locked with Eamon, so that way he could just land on it. He can either reinforce if there's a large amount of enemies coming towards him, which actually actually was very, very critical for my first game that I had. Eamon took a total of 1 damage off of 5 shots for my first game, and he was able to get in, draw in everybody that I needed to, get some damage off against a couple of vultures. Then I had my choice of which way I wanted to turn, and then I could start bombing away. And as they're trying to avoid that, they run right into Boba, and Boba comes in and starts doing the cleanup from there. So that really helped to help control my opponents where they're going to go, because I'm offering up the weaker Iman versus Boba, who's a little more tanky once he gets up close. But it's basically making my opponent choose, have a tough choice of who they want to go against. So
for your opening position, because I didn't watch any of your games, do you always Boba left, Iman right? Or I mean, like just left, right side with Kanan in the middle to force your opponent to choose which one they're going to go at?
Eamon towards the center, Boba on one of the edges, and then Kanan on the opposite middle edge, basically. So that way he can hard to in and just basically go parallel along the edge of the board and turn as he needs to allow Eamon to come around. So,
fair enough. Well done, my friend. Well done.
So you put Eamon in the center? That's what you're saying? And Boba on the left and Kanan on the right?
Yeah, to the right. So the opposite side of wherever Boba is, I would keep Kanan on that side. That's how I do it.
What do you just point your arc to the right or to the left and then fly on the side? Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, just to make sure that he wasn't bumped or like had the possibility of being bumped in case somebody decided to go fast and try to chase him down. So yeah.
All right. Let's go through Kyber Cup. So I broke down and we have 5-0, basically anybody that went 5-0. And then we have 4-1-0, which is 4 and a draw. And then we have 4 and a loss, and we picked random ones I picked random ones based on that. So there's probably a bias, especially because there's a co-host here that should not have made it because he used trajectory B-wings.
Such a hey! I did it for the community.
You didn't do shit.
Yo, whatever for the community.
They needed to get banned, and I successfully got them banned.
Is that what we're doing? You took one for the team.
So stop running Boba Eamon, dumbass, because I don't want that banned. That was the first list I ever played other than Empires. So don't do that because I actually would run that.
So you're saying I should run Defender Vader to get it banned?
Yes.
No, don't. I like Defender Vader. No. All right. Anyway, let's keep moving because we're at
Yeah,
an hour 40. So, all right. So 5-0. So and again, the preface it is we don't need to read every bloody upgrade.
Yeah.
If you find something unique, let it be said. Who won? Or Charles, you get the first one. Nope, Charles gets the first. No, oh, you're right. Charles just did the other one, so you can have the first order one. Alexander is yours.
Yeah, Alexander Oler. I believe he's actually the brother of Andrew Oler, who's a really good X-Wing player. But yeah, the Oler brothers really good. First order, running Ember, Scorch, Malorus in the FO fighter, and Kylo Ren and Gideon Hask in the Sheesh class shuttle. Really interesting to see the resurgence of Agent Tarek's crew, just giving out those calculates on the sea shuttle to help give those mods out to the other ships. But other than that, yeah, pretty standard.
All right, the next one is Sandy. They ran Rebel Alliance with Fen Rao, with elusive Jen Urso, which I thought was extremely I don't even someone's gonna have to explain how that works. Because you're passing off just a free evade. And the other version that we've seen seems better, but Sandy has done very well. They have won every game I've ever watched them play with this. Every game. And they have Hera Syndulla with Prockets, and Wedge with Protons, which we all know. And the best part about this is they have the munitions failsafe, which I think should just be a staple if you're running proton torpedoes, for the pure fact that you know how many times I've watched a double modded proton torpedo shot do 2 damage. Yep. That's it.
Or blink out completely.
Or blink out. Yep. And Boudica in the Fang Fighter, which is what I have been running. That's the Rebel list. This is not the Rebel list I've been running, but it's close. I have been running Boudica in the Fang Fighter because I think it's fun. I just love that ship so much. A lot.
Charles.
All right. Charles, Nicholas God.
So first and foremost, I just would like to point out that Nicholas God finds a way to make wacky scum shit work.
Yes.
like the
time.
God shot list that on paper, people look at it why would you fly this? He flies it with razor precision. So I'm super hyped because this is a list that these 3 pilots don't really see a whole lot of table play, but we've got 2 medium base ships, 1 large base ship running Q90 in the Razor Crest. Super interested for basically all crew ship, right? I know Babu Freak is not crew. I know that he's illicit, and I know Greedo's a gunner, but it's essentially just a party bus. A much smaller party bus because you got Mando, the Child, Greedo, and Babu Freak with the Razor Crest title. Dengar in the toilet seat, running Notorious with Plasma Corps, HLC. I would say this is kind of normal. I assume they're running Baby Boba because Big Boba was banned.
Yeah.
And then Casca Frost in the Fire Spray with Marauder and Veteran Tail Gunner because holy crap, she needs more stuff out of her rear arc. But running, HLC and Ashoka. Much like your list, JJ, I like this because it's an outlier. You don't see a whole lot of any of these pilots anywhere right now. So again, like I said, you get someone that can put together a solid list with some outlier ships that people aren't used to seeing. And they can run that dark horse route. So the only thing I'm upset about is trying to build this in Launch Bay. Notorious doesn't exist as a talent slot, so I can't build it out.
The weird thing I think about this is you don't see L337, which seems to be the staple for Q9.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was about to say. No L3.
Yeah. I don't know how this person is doing it other than they're you get 2 churns with Q9 before Babu Fink gives you your stress back. I don't know. I'm insanely confused. Other than that, I think this is I do agree. I think this is a really fun list. So
yeah. So next up here we have Charles Holcomb, the Pink Panther himself, playing the Galactic Republic here. He has Ahsoka in the Delta 7. With Anakin in the N1 Baby Annie with passive sensors and proton torpedo variant. Click here in the B-Wing. Mace Windu in the Delta 7. and Luminara with Brilliant Invasion R4P. We see here a Republic list that actually does not have a support ship in the lat here. We basically have 5 Jedis, basically. Click being not one of them, but yeah, doing very well. They're going 5-0. So yeah, yeah. I immediately edited my statement as soon as I said that. Yeah, exactly.
So I will tell you, the Click is your support ship, though. Just so you know.
Yeah,
Click,
just
Click
with the
is,
ability. Yeah, with the R3. Yeah.
Click is saying Baby Annie can come in and hit you with a proton torpedo, and then get in closer, get a 3-dice shot, and then run away. Like that's what this is. I guess I haven't watched it, but Click is amazing. I think Click is underrated. I used Click when I had my Republic list, and Click was the money and always the first thing that people wanted to kill. So every time.
I do like the use of ion bombs versus like upgrading up to a proton bomb and sacrificing marksmanship. But ion just gives you that control, even with the new upped ion rules. It's still good.
Yep. All right, the next one, a little bit different than I run, but kind of similar. We have Midnight in the TIFO, which again I think people sleep on Midnight with Fanatical and Magpulse, and then we have Von Reg with deuterium power cells. Like, that's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen that before. And Shield Upgrade and Daredevil, because of course, why not with Von Reg? Kylo with proton torpedoes, because everybody's running it, and Malice. The first question I have is, why are you not running Shattering Shot instead with that? Because then it would be a 5-dice torpedo, and you would get a marksmanship talent if you wanted it. And then you have Malorus in the TIFO, which is my favorite TIFO. And oh, by the way, they gave Malorus an extra point, so you can now run Fanatical. If it wasn't good enough before, we're gonna give you Fanatical. Like, come on. Like, who thought that was a good? Who thought that's a bad? It goes against what I said in the chat, but that's a bad. Do not give Malorus any more points, please. Stop doing that. Like, next thing you know, they're gonna get 2 points, and you can run Predator.
Yeah, for real.
Oh my God. Stop doing it. All right. Next one is Sasha. Charles.
So with Sasha Wagner running Cad Bane, there's a lot of different Cad Bane builds, which speaks to the versatility of the ship, but HLC, Ion, Tidal, Zuckuss, and Proxy Mines. Bosk and the Z, like I almost threw up in my mouth a little bit saying that together. Bosk and the Z95 Headhunter, apparently, with overtuned concussion missiles, Deadeye shot, and marksmanship. That's a little bit of an outlier for me. I'm excited to see how that turned out. Running Paylob in the Hawk and Dengar in the toilet seat. I mean, that looks to be pretty close to the same Dengar that Nicholas was running. Pretty reasonably close. Or no, not Nicholas. That you were running, JJ. No, you didn't.
No,
I don't know.
No, it was Nicholas.
Was it Nicholas? Okay, yeah, Nicholas was running. Yeah, so it's pretty close to what Nicholas was running, which seems to be a pretty solid build. But yeah, I mean,
yep.
All right. The last one is my friend Sean from my local group, and I'm going to take this one because it's my local. He's
Bruce Squadron.
Yep. He is running Warthog with in the new Z95, which I think people are sleeping on those Z95s. But he's running Warthog with Elusive FCS, which is crazy on a Z95. Sync console, concussion missiles. Then Oddball with Plasmas, Ursaren, and Sync Console, which, again, we're seeing that this is unique. Oddball in a Y-Wing, who would have thought? The Hawk with Saturation Salvo, Barrage Rockets, Night Owl Commanders, and Electronic Baffle. Then Obi-Wan with Brilliant Vision, Crack Shot, and CLT. And then Contrail, because now Contrail's 1 more point. But, oh, by the way, he gets Crack Shot, Shield Upgrade, and Besh. So, like, Merry Christmas. But guess what? The best part is Contrail's an I-5, so Contrail could just pass that target log off when it doesn't need it. So, you rolled 2 hits? No problem. Have a free target lock one of my other ships. I mean, oh my god, like seriously, like Contrail getting points on Contrail just made Contrail 100% worth taking in any list. All right, so now we have 3 lists. So that was 7 lists in the top 5 and O's. We have 3 lists that had draws. And JJ, you want to grab the first one?
Yep, first one here is Vincent Morgado in the Rebel Alliance flying Chewie in the Falcon with Notorious, Chopper, Lando, Bistan, and Contraband Cybernetics. Pretty good loadout for Chewie, being the lower I4. He can still do a lot of work here, just shooting out the side over there, and Chopper just giving him that extra action when he bumps. So that's actually pretty good there. And besides that, we see a K2SO carrier with Ezra, Callus in the BCX, a big hitter here with those 4 dice. And then Iron Kraken in the Z95, just getting those shots off. Really solid list. This is definitely a kill list. This is a list that you're going to send out to go get some ships dead. It's a lot of beef.
How much is Bistan worth?
10 points, I believe. Still.
All right, so Bistan should immediately go up to 11 because that's what Sam's worth. I will tell you, I like this list because of Callus.
Doesn't give you a target lock.
8 points, actually. 8 points.
Okay, I think it should go up to 11 or 10. I'll take 10. Sell me on 10. Sell me on 10.
Yeah.
Sorry. I will say I like Callus though. And so you're putting 2 really big base ships in a list. One that's a double tap and one that has a 4 to 5 dice cannon. That's pretty good. Like I think that's pretty good. Like I think again, this is a unique list, and I like this a lot.
Yeah, I got to say the combo with the Child and Magmar Yarrow on Callus, you're giving your opponent that target lock, which they can only re-roll, or if they do roll or spend the lock, you're actually giving Callus agility to roll, and then he gets a target lock on you for attacking him with that. So it's actually a really interesting list. I like it.
Yep. The next one is an Empire list, which is ironic because this is almost the same list I ran this last week. Was Vader and Rexler Brath with an ISB and Valen. The difference is I ran 2 ISBs and everybody got pissed off because I won at the last second because Vader came in and just happened to nuke something. And now I feel if I just had put Juke, Malice, and Clusters on him, I would have 100% won even faster. Like, I feel I could have taken my Wedge off the board and my Ahsoka off the board in one churn, and I just would have felt better. So,
yeah.
Charles, you want to run down Crispy's list? Crispy's the last one in the 4 and 1 draws.
So, Crispy running Kylo, Commander Malorus, Scorched Dread, and Grudge. I do like seeing the bomber represented here. It kind of makes me happy to see that. I'm not a huge FO player, but from what I've seen for builds, I don't see a whole lot of outliers with each one of these ships as far as how they're being built. Do you see anything, Chris or JJ? Because for me, these all seem pretty run-of-the-mill.
Yeah, not really. Concussion missiles is a little bit different. On the Kylo, you could run the clusters instead, but other than that, really, this is pretty standard. I don't like the Scorch include personally, but that's just my opinion. Like, I'm not a Scorch fan at all.
What he's going for here is just making sure that he has at least 3 ships that can shoot 3 die attacks reliably. The reason why I would agree with Crispy with concussion missiles versus like clusters is that with shattering shot, if you're pointing yourself towards an obstacle, you have a better chance of hitting a ship at range 3 through an obstruction with concussions, and have enough space to maneuver out of it and make sure that that you're not putting yourself out of the way like in a bind. To still keep time on target with other ships there. Same thing with Scorch. He's another 3 die gun attack. He's very cheap, but he's a 3/3 attack, and if he hits you hard, he's gonna do some damage there. And if you decide to kill him, you've only gotten 3 points in return.
Yeah.
So that is really, really good there. And and Shattering Shot combined there with the chaff missiles from Dread, and it's really easy to trigger that pretty easily. So
and that's why I would feel that I would feel that the cluster missiles would be more easier, and that's only because you're running Kylo behind the bombers, because they're fast. They could be faster than Kylo.
Yeah,
that's all. Like again, I don't disagree. Like concussion, again, it's just a flavor of who runs it, right? You know, like I think that's the only difference. I really actually like this list. Again, other than Scorch, I would find a different FO. I would not run Scorch, but it's just me personally. I hate Scorch with a passion. I don't know why. I just do not like him. All right. Now we're in the 4 and 1s. And again, there was a total of 32 lists. We're only going to do notable mentions. And if you're a Republic player who happened to have it, the only reason you got in is because you had Z95s. Other than that, you ain't going to make the cut because I don't care. Because screw Republic. Even though I own a bunch of Republic stuff. No offense, Charles. But Charles, you want to take the first one for Garrett Just?
Oh, you mean a Republic list that we're not going to go over? No, I'm just kidding.
No, we are. I put it in there. I put it 100%.
So running Anakin in the Delta 7B, Oddball, Contrail, and then Killer and Stub in the Z95s. I like it. I mean, he went 4-0 with a tie, so I mean, you can't really complain.
1 loss.
Oh, a loss. Excuse me.
The 0 is the ties. The ones
is the tie. Got it.
Are losses. Yeah.
Got it. All right. I'll be honest, I don't know a whole lot about the clone Z95s or how well they've been doing since release. Anakin in the Delta 7 is always good. Anakin in anything is good. I really wanted to like V-Wings, but I'm terrible with them. And then Oddball is Oddball. I really want Oddball to be a good pilot to do well overall. I just don't really see it happening overall, but we'll see. Other than that, yeah, it's a pretty solid list.
Yeah, I like them. I think in this case, those have been like just Killer and Stub themselves hit very hard. All right, yeah. JJ, next one is Connor Holmes.
We have a 3-ship list here for the Galactic Empire. We have Vader in the TIE D with the standard loadout, Soontir Fel with Predator, Lone Wolf, and Shield upgrade, and Major Vermeil with Palpatine with the Ion Limited Override and Baffle. And I actually have to look up the Limiter Override because I'm not sure what that does. But I definitely like this list here, just having the Reaper come back as a Palp carrier, and Vermeil can just support from the back and still have his own passive mod for offense. Pretty good.
All right. Next one is Cameron Dickey. Charles, we have a Charles list here.
Oh, yeah, we do. There's Rook. Is he running? Oh, he didn't. Drop seat Day is interesting. With the Super Commandos. Yeah, I really like that. Yeah. You got Mando in the ST-70, Gamut, and then a Z-95. With the exception of Rook, this all seems to be pretty close. I'm not sure, JJ, can you weigh in on why in God's name anyone would run the IGD crew when you don't have...
Yeah, because Mando's ability can trigger multiple times to get a focus, so a single focus. So having 2 calculates to help you mod that single result always better. Or if you're on offense, you can spend 1 calculate to reroll with Lando, and then have another calculate to auto focus after that reroll. So it's a little bit of both, and you have clan training on top of that to get a focus on top of that if you're at close range. So
yeah,
I will ask a question.
I was going to say, I don't know. The IGD just seems kind of superfluous, but that's just me personally. So
I will ask a question. They have 2 upgrades on here. Couldn't they have reused some of those 3 points somewhere else?
Wait, which one are you talking about?
His Mandalorian ship has 2 upgrades, and then you have the Razor Crest title. You can't run 3 freaking upgrades. You can't. They ruled against it.
Right, exactly. So the elicits on the Mandalorian, they normally have 2 elicits. So he has false transponder codes and over 2 modulators, and then Razor Crest would hide one of those 2 to reveal later. That's how it was ruled for Kyber.
Yeah, okay. But you can hide the one. You don't have to put it in the list, and then you get 3 points to spend somewhere else. I'm just saying, like, there's
fair.
3 point. Like, Cameron, you had 3 extra points. Maybe you didn't need them, but you had 3 extra points. Get rid of your extra handling. Well, I don't know. I like extra handling, but there's no L337. Like, I'm just very confused by this. You know, like you could have L337, but all right.
Yeah.
Next one is Sam Cooper with Grievous without maneuver, Impervium plating the simple. Pre-Vizsla with Zam, Trickshot, Veteran, and Swiveling. 2 Holocron prototypes with energy shells, and then 2 Vultures with Discords. The very standard build. I like it. I've ran a very similar one to this. So.
Yep. Next up, Kevin Rosner in the Resistance with Ray, with Novus Technician, actually, really interesting. Wilsa Tethlo in the Y-Wing, Jessica Pava, and Kazuda Ziono with R1J5 as the astromech in this version. Pretty good.
Yep. And the next one, again, I'll read it because it's this one is Kretzy with 2 Holocrons, DFS 81, 2 Vultures, 3 Vultures, I'm sorry, with Discords and Django. And yes, this gets rid of Seer, and yes, it gets rid of my Cad Bane. But I almost like it better, and I feel sad that I should have ran this because it's Django, and I love Django. With
the return of the DRK probe droids to give out those target lots for those energy shell charges. Pretty good.
Yep, it is. It's a good catch on there we have. Charles, next one is Chazin.
Galactic oh god. Jesus, mother and Joseph. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Z95s and a lat.
Yep.
Who knew that was going to be good?
I did, but I don't own that many Z95s.
Those Z's are good, man. They're very good.
I don't own any of those. Here's a question. Could you, because I have a fuck ton of the regular Z95s, could you field a regular Z95 on the peg for the clone Z95? Or
yes.
Are you required to have the clone Z95 ship?
Nope.
Yeah, you could field the regular.
You could. It'd be fun too.
The one thing I like to note here is that on 3 of these ships, he has homing torpedoes and missiles. If he has a target lock on the same ship, that is 3 damage going straight into that ship, or you're going to take 12
3
dice.
shots.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really, it's good. Like, period.
Yeah.
Like, that is really good. That
especially when we're high agility, like low health ship totals, being able to land 3 through on, say, Fen Rao, for instance, or the stupid TIE interceptor that nobody cares about. But being able to push through 3 damage no matter what is just good. Anybody that's flown three or TLTs knows that guaranteed damage is better than chance damage any day.
Think about it this way. This is Hawk, right? This is a lat, and think about it going in. This is a counter to Vader Defender. Seriously. Like, I think people are sleeping on that aspect of it. This is a great counter to Vader Defender.
Agreed.
All right, Charles, you can have the next one too because it's a scumshell list. This is you almost.
Yeah. Fearless Fen with Lone Wolf and Afterburners. I like that. Although, as much as I enjoy Lone Wolf, Fen wants to be in the scrum and not be far out away from people. So I would shy, personally, my play style with Fen, I would shy away from Lone Wolf because once the scrum starts, it's a useless upgrade. You've got Dengar with Notorious, Proton Torp, Jamming Beam, Boba Fett, Contraband, Punishing 1. R4B11's a little different than what we've been seeing on Dengar, but still pretty solid, kind of run-of-the-mill Dengar build. And then running that Q90 with IGD, the Razor Crest title. You guys made a play for IGD being on Mando as the pilot. Why for Q90? I don't know. Again, I get the double calculate, and I'm fine with that. It's just, it seems like there are so many other things that you could do differently than IGD, especially when the robots are not modern or not standard legal. But all in all, still a pretty solid build.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
And I think we've run out of time at that point for here.
Yeah, really, the next list is 4 Resistance Light Wings and Poe. We have Travis Johnson running a Empire list with Defender Vader, Seven Sister, Wampa, and Countdown. This is a fly better list right here. That's what that is.
I believe I actually saw him fly this here. Seven Sister without maneuver. Oh my gosh, that is really good. I gotta say,
she's really good.
Yeah.
This was a Republic or Rebel list I hadn't seen too much of with Dutch, Shara Bay, Wedge, and Bentic 2-tubes. I thought that was pretty interesting, honestly. Bentic with K2SO.
Isn't Shara Bay Poe's mother?
Yes.
That's what I thought.
Yes. But again, this list seemed pretty good, actually. And then the last list, which, I guess we'll mention because we have to, is JJ running Dutch with Belly Rub, Ions, Clusters, R3, Jake, who should be 100% increase in points, which I've said for a long time. Wedge, Shara, and Kalubi Speedo, because, he might as well just be in a Speedo. I don't know. Wait,
yeah.
And is Kalubi, where's Kalubi from? I don't know that pilot.
She's Renegades. So after she performs a boost action, she gets to open her wings.
Where is she from?
From the Saul's Renegades.
No, I think he just means in the universe.
Yeah, period. In the universe. I don't give a fuck where you get her from.
No, she's part of Saul's Renegades. That's what I'm trying to say. From
Saul's
Renegades. Yes. We see her
from
in Rogue
Clone
One.
Wars. You should just say from Clone Wars.
We see them in Rogue One.
Okay, so she's not in Clone Wars then?
I have to look back, but I know we definitely see them in Rogue One and in Rebels. So, yeah.
All right. Are you going to elaborate on your list, or are you just going to leave us hanging to dry?
I want to do Obi-Wan, so let's go back. And besides, officially, I have a possible match coming up with Crispy because there was a challenge done on NCX. So, stay tuned. We'll probably have that match on Tuesday. So, yeah. maybe.
All right, guys.
All right.
Enjoy your discussion of the Obi-Wan things. I'm going to dip out because I am still about an hour away from being able to watch Obi-Wan. So I will probably take part next week because once we get through the rest of episode 3, I'm going to binge watch Obi-Wan to get caught up. But I am out of here. I am going to go take some NyQuil and pass out. So have a wonderful evening, guys.
All right. Have a good night, Charles. So anyway, thank you all for joining us. We do a regular show every Sunday night, 9 p.m. Eastern. Thank you for joining us. Tonight was a little bit longer because Tanner got into statistics and JJ didn't pay attention to the document. And sorry, that's what happens. No offense. This is the shit I get. This is what I love. I like that stuff. Quick reminder, if you have not and live in Florida, and I'm not saying in Orlando, but if you live in Florida, please head over and sign up for our tournament. And the longer I think about this, the more I want to fly down there. The cost is just so prohibitive. My wife is not very happy with me about the prohibitive cost of flying down there, but I really want to come down there and meet everyone in person. So if you have not signed up yet or know somebody or any sort of group, let us know. And hell, I'm open to do interviews. I'll rant and rave and, drink some whiskey and join any podcast you want to help support the tournament that we're having down in Florida. With that being said, thank you all for joining us. We will be back next week at 9 p.m. Eastern Time to talk about more Star Wars X-Wing. We will be covering the first GSP tournament that they had for the new tournament. Talking a little bit about Pride Month because it's Pride Month, and unfortunately, I will not be playing in the tournament because I'm going to go to Pride. I don't know. I might play like the first 3 rounds and then like dip out to go to Pride. I don't know. I don't know how I want to do that yet. But either way, we will be covering the tournament next week. If you would like to talk Obi-Wan, please hang on. We're going to take a 3-minute break so I can use the restroom, and I'll be right back with Obi-Wan Kenobi right here on Planning Phase Syndicate.